and welcome to my top 20 eBay sales for the year of 2023. We're going to go from lowest to highest, and actually all of these are over $50. And I'm actually going to start with a bonus sale because I sold something on Etsy for over $50, and it is this probe jacket. I did mention this in a previous video that this probe jacket actually came to me by way of a free donation from a family member passing. And this was a leather and sweater jacket. It was from like the late 70s, and it sold on Etsy for $60, and actually the person paid an additional $35 to have it shipped somewhere in Central America. So this was an amazing sale, and the reason why I'm sharing this is because you're like, well, that's a free donation. How am I going to find that? I actually recently found a similar jacket from the time period, from the 70s, that was a sweater slash leather jacket. So they are out there. You can find them. You can find them at estate sales. You can find them at thrift stores, which is where I found the one that I just recently found for about $7. So you can find them. They're good sellers. You will have to wait for the right buyer because I listed this and it took about 8 months to sell, but that's kind of how leather jackets work in general. They're normally almost all long tail unless they're from like a premium designer house like Chanel or Balenciaga or something like that. Even then, sometimes they're gonna sit. But then I'm gonna move Miss Moxie here, and now we're gonna get into the 20 eBay sales to share with you guys. I will also try to mention like where I found them and also the original purchase price for them, so that way you guys can maybe like be on the lookout while you're out as well. The first item I have to share with you is this Libby Celestial Cobalt Mug, and the reason why this is such a catch, I originally sold it for $54.87, just was bought outright, is because this mug was actually used on Friends. This was one of the mugs that Monica liked to drink out of, and that's why I included that in the first picture. As soon as I switched the first picture to do the split where it has all the pictures of the mug and Monica showing using that mug, it immediately sold. So I actually found this at an estate sale that I got kicked out of. So I paid like $2 for this mug. And I actually had to, there was acrylic paint on the handle, and I had to remove the acrylic paint from the handle. Someone had painted the handle green, but I knew what this was, and I knew that this was a great find, and so I was willing to put in the little bit of work, because it's glass, so it was super easy to remove the acrylic paint from it. But yeah, sold for $54.87, and I found it at an estate sale. The next item is this pair of Spees. Now these came to me new without box. These were actually in a ThredUp box, men's ThredUp box, which is why I say they are my favorite box, and I will talk about that more a little bit later. But these came to me out of that men's ThredUp box. They were new without box, but the reason why these Spees sold for $55.90 was because these are the Spees Gold Cup. The Spees Gold Cup are a higher end, like premium line of the Spees boat shoes. They have more cushioning in them. They normally have a slightly higher quality of leather. And that is why these were worth that amount. One, they're new, and two, they were the Gold Cup. So when I go out and I find Spees, unless I'm at the bins, I'm only looking for the Spees Gold Cups when I'm outsourcing at retail thrifts. But $55.90, again, I love the men's ThredUp boxes. This next item is another item I found at an estate sale. I paid, I think, $4 because it was originally $8, but it was half off day, so I paid $4. And it sold for $58. And another item I found at an estate sale that was new, that had never been used. Again, estate sales are amazing. I love estate sales. And it still had the original sticker on it with the original purchase price, and it was this beautiful like ivory cream Linux floating heart face. I actually found the exact name because it was on the original sticker at the bottom. And this also sold pretty quickly. It sold for $58, and I was perfectly happy with that, especially with my $4 buy cost at the estate sale. This next item is actually one I found at the bins. So you can find amazing things at the bins. It is this Roback Polo. Roback is a high-end golf brand that has absolutely insane sell-through rate, like over 400% sell-through rate. This I found at the bins with, it was like a fresh donation. It was like a pile of fresh donations that had never been at the thrift store. It's like all came from the same person. It was with a whole bunch of FootJoy and Tommy Bahama, and like the Tommy Bahamas with the embroidered backs. And it was like just an amazing like bundle of where someone had donated like all of their extra large and 2 extra large shirts. And this was in there. And so I paid probably $1 for this shirt, and it sold very quickly, like within a week of listing it, for $58. Again, because it has, you know, that 400% or more sell-through rate. That's why it sold so quickly and for such a high amount of money. I would love to find more Roback. Definitely more Roback at the bins. That was amazing. And this next item is actually also another find from the bins. This was a throwback from another reseller, or maybe just another shopper at the bins. Normally what I do is along the back wall, that's normally where everybody like goes and takes their pile and throws stuff back, is when I'm getting ready to leave, I will go and look at those to see if there's anything thrown back that maybe I would want to resell. And I found this Free People jean jumper, and I modeled it, and it sold pretty much within 48 hours of me listing it for $59.87. I do think it is because I did model it that it made a difference, because you could see it on the body. I would have kept this honestly because of how well it fit. I have a long torso and I'm a tall lady, and it like fit everywhere except because I am a tall lady, it was too short in the legs, but everywhere else it was perfect. Like I said, it sold for $59.87, and this was a discard at the bin. So somebody else tossed it back, didn't want it, immediately scooped it up, washed it, put it on my body, took pictures, it sold. This next item is actually a big thank you to my friend Matt over at Thrift-A-Life. He just put out his Menswar Manifesto, which is also how I learned about the Roback. It is the 5th iteration of that, so I will link that down below if you would like to learn more high selling and high sell-through rate menswear brands. I don't get anything for it other than helping my friend out, because friends support friends, right? But this is actually, when I went to California to go to TwitchCon, I also got an opportunity to thrift with him and also with Courtney from Common Tags. While we were thrifting, he was like, hey, do you want this jacket? It's a Circle S jacket, which is a Western wear brand. And it had like the Western epaulettes on the side. It was a really interesting jacket. I did have to fix it. I needed to ladder stitch the inside lining back together, which is part of why he didn't want to deal with it, was because of the fact that like he would have to denote there was a flaw. I wouldn't, because I would be able to fix it. I do know how to sew. I know how to do that and to reseam everything. So he gave it to me, and I think I paid like $1 for it at the thrift store, and it sold for $59.87. So Matt, if you're watching this, which I doubt you are, but thank you very much. And again, please, if you want to learn more about fast selling and high sell-through menswear, definitely go check out his Menswar Manifesto. The next one is actually a book, and a book that I can show you because it is Black God's Kiss. Boop. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this. This is one of the few printings of the C.L. Moore collection of short stories combined into one novel. This is by the Planet Stories, which if you are ever outsourcing and you see Planet Stories on the spine, I would recommend picking it up, especially if they're like $1 or less, because almost all of them sell for $12 to $59.87 because they are reprinting classic science fiction and fantasy books. The reason why this one is so valuable is because of the fact that this is considered the first female protagonist in fantasy, and also because it is all of the short stories, because this was originally published in as a serial in a magazine. So it's all of those stories combined into one cohesive novel, which is why this is valuable. I just wanted to geek out about a book for a little bit because I own it. So, but it sold for $59.87, and if you find it out there in the wild, I recommend you picking up a copy for yourself and maybe reading it before passing it along. But yeah, this is exciting. All right, the next item is another great find. I went to Diversity, which is a thrift store in Richmond, Virginia, and they do something called Power Hour. They now do it twice a week, and what it is that there is an hour that all clothing is $1. Doesn't matter what it is, it's $1. And I went through the men's section and managed to find a Laura Piana branded button-down shirt. So it wasn't like, you know, a sports blazer made by Polo Ralph Lauren that has a Laura Piana wool tag, because that's the fabric house. So Laura Piana is a fabric house that also sometimes makes clothing. And so if you find something from that valuable clothing house that's actually made by them, it is thus also valuable. So I paid $1 for this Laura Piana button down, and it sold for $63.64 for a basic men's button down shirt, which again, I paid $1 for. So it's out there, you just gotta find it. This next item is a record. This is actually definitely a record to be on the lookout for if you're out at estate sales or even at the thrift store, which is where I found this. I found a collection of 70s and 80s metal records at Goodwill. Like, it was a fresh donation, just hit the floor, and I just managed to be right there at the right time. And man, I've made a lot of money off of those records. But this is the one that sold for the most, and it is The Ultimate Sin from 1986 by Ozzy Osbourne. And the more accoutrements you can have with this record, the better. So if you have the original record sleeve, if you have the promotional materials, it came with, I think, a poster. It also came with like some other little like tickety things. There's like a whole bunch of other accoutrements with this record, and the more you have, the more valuable it is. Of course, also if you manage to find a sealed one, oh my goodness, that would be amazing. But it sold for $64, and I paid $2.17 for this at the Goodwill. So that was a great find. It's a great album too. I got to listen to it because I was checking to make sure it didn't skip or have any issues with it. The next one is a Le Creuset pot. This is one that was made in France. So the ones that are Le Creuset pots that are made in France are a little bit more valuable. And this is my first time actually finding Le Creuset out in the wild that was worth it for resale. I believe I paid $8 for this pot, and it sold actually to a viewer for $69.87. So this was amazing, and if you are watching, thank you again. But yeah, Le Creuset as a whole is an amazing brand to resell. They do enameled cast iron. It's just that most thrift stores have a tendency to mark it up because they also know it, and this was the first time, again, I found it at a price point where I could resell it. I did say I was going to talk about men's thread-up boxes again. In the same box that I got the Spees in that I previously talked about, I also got this pair of Nike Air Force Ones. And these actually went to international buyer. They went all the way to Japan, and they sold for my full asking price of $69.87. I was unsure about them when I originally unboxed them, and then when I looked at them a little bit more and I realized they were one of the more desirable high tops of Air Force Ones. Even at a smaller size, I knew I could sell them because there is the Asian market as well, and that's exactly where it went to. So another great sale to come out of a men's thread-up box, which is why it's my favorite box. I have always made a ton of money off of the men's thread-up boxes. I can't wait for them to drop another one. The next item actually is a little bit of a shame for me because I held on to this dress for 3 years before I finally listed it. It came to me from an estate sale during quarantine and lockdown in 2020. Estate sales went to only being online. And so because they were online only, I bid on a lot of 2 silk dresses for, I believe, $12. So it was $6 for each dress. And I won. And this dress was one of those dresses, and it sat in my death pile for 3 years before I finally got around to listing it. And when I was doing research on the dress, I found out that this was one of the Polo Ralph Lauren dresses that Melania Trump had worn, which is why it sold for $70 almost as soon as I listed it. And this actually also went to an international buyer in, I think, Norway. So this was a great sale that I don't know if maybe, I don't know when that picture of her was taken in this dress, but because I, again, had that as part of the first picture, it sold very quickly once I finally got around to listing it 3 years later. So don't be me, list your stuff, don't let it languish in the death pile, and I'm super happy that this turned out to be an even a better sale than I was expecting it to be. I knew Polo Ralph Lauren silk dresses, even if I only sold this dress, I would have made money. I just didn't think it would be, you know, $70 immediately after listing it. So great sale. The next item was something I knew for a fact would sell very well, and that was because I'm a giant nerd, thus the Asteroids t-shirt, which is what this is, which is a 1970s video game, which came out way before I was born. But this is a Team Fortress 2 sweater. This is a limited release from Steam, which is a platform that has all the video games on it. I don't know how to explain what Steam is if you don't play computer games. But this was a limited release from Valve in 2014. They came out with this in orange, which is the original colors, and also in gray. And there aren't very many of these out in the world. So this sold, I saw this in the women's department, but this is a men's sweater. Immediately picked it up, knowing that it was going to sell well, definitely more than the $6.25 I was going to pay for it. But it wasn't until I looked at comps that I realized that I had actually a really great sweater, because it sold immediately after listing it for $74.87, which was awesome. Now, I will state that it might have to do with the time of year that I listed this. So I listed this early in October. So this might have been someone's Halloween outfit. I have no idea. It might have been like the right place, right time. But all of the sold comps for this sweater, depending on if it was new and what size it was between $60 and $100. So great sweater. Super happy that the nerdiness paid off in more than one way. Next item is a pair of Double H military boots. Double H is a great shoe company, great boot company, and these sold for $79.87. I did have to wait for the right buyer. I did buy these, and it took a few months, several months actually, for them to sell, so about half a year for them to sell, mostly because they were a smaller size. But they did eventually sell for my full asking price of $79.87. I just had to wait for the right buyer. But because they were military grade boots and they were Double H, I knew eventually I was going to get there. And then speaking of boots, I found my first pair of Tony Llama boots, and I used the AI background feature on Photo Room to make it look like it was out by a barn on a field somewhere. I just thought it was pretty. I don't know if that helps sell them or not, because Tony Llama is a great brand, a great bootwear brand. I only know about this brand because of my friend Amber from Amber Resells, who made a whole video explaining the different boot brands. So I will go ahead and link her video up above if you are interested in learning more about boots, about cowboy boots. But I saw that video because I watch all of her videos, and when I saw these out in the store, I did pay up for these, but paying up for these was like $15 versus I think they originally marked these at $30, but even at $30 I would have made good money because they sold for $90. And they were a beautiful pair of ostrich leather cowboy boots. So the next item I have to share is this Donny Was dress. This beautiful gray dress with absolutely gorgeous like embroidery all over it. This is the first time I ever found Donny Was, and it was at the Goodwill over in Williamsburg. I paid $9 for this dress, and it's also sold to a viewer. She bought it for $99.87. So Dot, thank you very much again. But I knew that this would sell around this range anyway, because that's where all the comps were for this particular jersey dress that had the embroidery, especially because it was a larger size and it was just absolutely gorgeous. But sold for $99.87, and again, love that. I just recently found another Donny Was dress, so hopefully that'll also be a quick sell. The next one is a 90s Coach crossbody. I believe I found this at an estate sale. That's normally where I find most of my vintage Coach bags, because Coach gets marked up at all the thrift stores. So I paid, I think, $5 for this bag at the estate sale, and it sold for $99.90. This was from the 90s. I don't know what it is about like 90s Coach purses, but they're all normally like a nice plain leather, either like navy or brown or black, and they all just feel like just gorgeous. They had buttery soft leather. They're just absolutely beautiful bags. This was one of their like travel bags that they would have probably marketed as like a camera bag back when people didn't have cameras as their phone. So it fit a regular, you know, modern phone in it. So it was like a perfect small little crossbody, which I think is why it sold for $99.90. The next item I have to share with you is still currently listed because it is a multi-quantity, multi-variation item. It is something that I actually just update the quantities on this listing whenever I find more of it, and I found it in multiple locations, multiple times, and I just add to it. And this is a set of dishes, and the dishware set is called Octime. And it's very distinct. It is black glass, and it is made by Aquaroc, which is a French company. And both the times that this sold for over $50, it was a large quantity of someone. It was someone listing a bunch of replacements for their own dishware. And so they were picking multiple items at a time. So not a single piece is worth over $50, but because I've gotten 2 orders over $50, I figured it would be pertinent to share. One order, again for multi-quantity, multi-variation listing, was $93.70, and that is before adding the shipping amount which they paid for. And the second time I fulfilled an order using this dishware was $103.70. And again, they also paid quite a bit for shipping because I am shipping glass dishes. But this is one of the few dishware sets that I pick up instantly whenever I see it because I know it will sell, and I know it will sell quickly. And all of these dishes, they have scratches on them because it's glass and you're using like metal silverware with it, and some of them had dishwasher film on them because like somebody had hard water or something. So even disclosing all of that and even having those condition issues, they didn't have any chips. Now chips or cracks, I will not pick it up. But if it's got like some scratches on it from silverware use, and if it's got like some hard water film on it, depending on how bad it is, I will still pick it up too. Still had 2 sales over $50, and it's something that you can easily find. Now the first time, normally I'll pay $1 less per piece, and sometimes I'll just get like a whole milk crate full of it and pay like $14 for a whole milk crate of it, which is how I found it to begin with. So this is great. Love this set. We'll continue to pick it up. We'll continue to add back to my listing. The next item was, if you are new here, I absolutely love buying and selling vintage, as you can tell from, you know, the vintage Coach and vintage glassware and other vintage stuffs on my channel. But I actually spotted these from the front door, and I made a beeline for them because I saw them hanging up on the wall in a Goodwill in Yorktown, Virginia. And it was because it was a pair of Washington, D.C. overalls. I've never gotten to see Washington, D.C. overalls in person before. It is one of those vintage brands of overalls that I will absolutely like pick up every time. Now there is a company that bought the rights to that brand, and they now continue to still make overalls, but it's women specific, and they're not the same quality because they're no longer being made in like the United States, if that makes sense. But when I saw these, I made a beeline for them. I saw that they were vintage from the 50s, and then when I turned them over because it was the front, I found out that they were dead stock. So it was a pair of dead stock overall Washington vintage overalls from the 50s, and it sold very quickly for $110.05. I paid $10 for these at that Goodwill. Happy to do that all day long. I was so ecstatic. The only way I would have been happier if I had managed to find a pair of Washington, D.C. overalls from the 70s in a green flare, because those exist. They made like flare bell-bottom overalls for women in the 70s in multiple colors. If I could find them in my size, I would lose my mind. But Did not do it this time. Found a men's pair, dead stock. Still grateful for the sale. And then the last, number 20, the big one that I sold for the most money, is also another set of vintage dishes that I believe you should be on the lookout for, and also something that sold twice. So I found a set of 6 Syracuse China Longhorn plates. These are the airbrushed Longhorn plates. They come in different patterns. They have the Longhorns that are the ones that I found. They have boots, they have saddles, and they have hats. And they have all of the above. I think there's also a cactus one too. But these Syracuse China airbrush plates with the Southwest themes are valuable. And I found a bunch of oval ones at the Restore in Newport News. I paid $2 a piece for each one. I sold a set of 2 of them for $79.74. And then I sold a set of 4 of them for $159.48. So I paid a total of, you know, $12 and had 2 sales over 50. So, I mean, I know that I know a lot of people that watch me have a tendency to do mostly clothes, but if you are interested in glass and dishware, there is money there too. I sell everything. I also sell, like I said, a lot of books. You've seen books on this list, you've seen clothes on this list, and you've seen dishware on this list. I sell a little bit of everything, and that keeps things interesting for me because I need novelty in my life. I'm also interested in a lot of things, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it interesting. I hope that 2024 you will find a bunch of really good items and have some great sales yourself. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, bye. Bye.
Hero, 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 hero. I wanna be a hero, hero. Oh, the hero.